when Warren shows the clothes that Jay was wearing.
Now, if Jay wasn't wearing it when his body was found, what do we have on CCTV? Jay leaving the NRG festival with no t-shirt on. So it means Jay never wore his t-shirt all night. You're telling me Jay went to Tramps, Sugar Reefs, suck balloons, Magic Mike's, had foods, got into the car with Ayub, went all the way to the Airbnb, wrapped himself up in a blanket, but the whole entire time he was never wearing his t-shirt. Tells us that this poor guy Jay, man, they done him within that missing time that I've told you about. Yo, ladies and gentlemen, we are back again with part 2, reacting to the Joey and Josh podcast. Before we actually get into this, I was actually thinking about the initial explanation that Ayub gave us when he told us about Jay leaving the Airbnb. They had to quickly change that, didn't they? Do you remember that? Do you remember when Ayub told us that Jay left the Airbnb because he went to go and get scran? That was the original story that got told to us. Jay left the Airbnb because he was going to get scran. Now, it never made sense for Jay to be going to get scran at that point. And I think Ayub quickly cottoned on and realized that, yeah, that doesn't make any sense. So he changed it to Ophelia knocking on the door and telling him to remove the car. But it didn't make any sense at that point, even in the conversation when he said Jay went to go and get scran, because in the same conversation, he said he had a pit stop to get kebabs and Pepsis and Sprite. But Jay went to go and get scran initially. He went to go and get something to eat. He was hungry. Them kebabs weren't enough. He was dehydrated. He needed water. The Pepsis, the Sprite, the water that was in the car where Jay was smiling. You know, there's a little bottle of water in the car where Jay's smiling his face off. Ayub even claimed on a live stream that there was water in the fridge at the Airbnb. Taking all of that into consideration, how have Debbie and Warren now lapped up that they were all at Magic Mike's, which is a food restaurant at 6 o'clock in the morning? That was even before the pit stop, because Ayub still claims the pit stop happened. What happened at that pit stop? Where was that pit stop? See, none of these things have been looked into. Clearly, earlier in the case, Ayub realized that it didn't make sense for him to be sticking with Jay going to get scran. It was then changed to Jay going to get cigarettes. Warren believed that Jay left the Airbnb that morning to go and get cigarettes. Wow, who told him that? Narrative changed again, story changed again. And then we finally get a story from Ayub that he more or less starts to stick with, which involves Ophelia knocking on the door, or let me rephrase that, pressing the buzzer, waking these guys up. Jay woke up. I mean, there was no mention of Rocky throughout this whole entire story. When it gets to being in that Airbnb, Rocky vanishes, yeah. There's no mention of Rocky in there whatsoever. Although Rocky is sleeping downstairs with Jay, there's no mention of him. But the official story that Ayub then claims is that the buzzer goes off, wakes Jay up. Jay's like, what's that awful sound? Ayub runs downstairs in his boxers. He claims he runs downstairs in his boxers. Who would do that? Like, who would literally do that in a yard with 3 men? It makes no sense. But Ayub says he runs downstairs in his boxers, opens up the door. Ophelia is standing there with 2 men, and one of them's got a wheelbarrow. Ophelia asks Ayub to move his car. He then goes upstairs, puts his clothes on, comes back downstairs, still no mention of Rocky, and starts to move his car. As he moves the car, he says he sees Jay speaking with Ophelia. And then Jay comes back to the Airbnb saying, yeah, Ophelia said I can get the bus every 10 minutes. So I'm cutting out, basically. Okay, so where's the mention of going to get cigarettes? Where's the mention of going to get scran? All of a sudden, Jay's just cutting out because Ophelia told him he can get the bus every 10 minutes. Interesting. Ayub then says he tried to convince Jay not to leave. You know, chill, Jay. I'll give you a lift in a few hours when I've had a little nap and I'll wake back up again. But Jay was like, nah, it's all right. He was adamant that he needed to go. He didn't want to wait. He was ready to go. Although he was only there for 40 minutes. And within that space of time, he's taking videos wrapped up in a blanket like he's sleeping over, like he's staying over for the night. Why would someone come to your B&B, wrap yourself up in a blanket, smoke a cigarette, video the outside without showing yourself, and then decide, you know what, I'm leaving. I'm just going to walk the wrong way. You know, I consciously come in the car with Ayub and Rocky. I've only been here for 40 minutes. There's only one way up. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk the wrong way. Yeah, that makes sense for me. That makes sense for me. I mean, I was standing outside that B&B with a blanket wrapped around me. I was seeing all the civilization down there. maybe one or two people walk in, a few cars. But I decided that I'm gonna go the wrong way. And I'm gonna walk that wrong way for 30 minutes. See, just think of that right there, ladies and gentlemen. Makes no sense, never did make sense. And anyone believes that happened, you're a fool. Because it never happened. The only thing that traveled in that direction, ladies and gentlemen, was Jay's mobile phone. And that mobile phone was in someone else's pocket. But I wanted to start off just by mentioning how that side of the story got changed by Ayub and how it still doesn't make sense. In fact, how it still contradicts Affilia's statement. Because Affiliate doesn't mention anything about knocking on the door. Affiliate doesn't mention anything about any interactions with anyone in that B&B, outside the B&B. She doesn't mention about moving a car. She doesn't mention about being with her husband or the husband and his friend. Like, there's no mention of any of that. Affiliate's statement is, I just saw this guy at the bus stop. He asked me for the bus times twice, more or less. And then I see him 15 minutes later walking the wrong way. And she said she just knew it was the same guy that asked her for the bus times. I mean, on the basis of that statement, she could have seen anyone. And maybe she never saw Jay. And that's the reason why she decided to be cold and hostile towards the family and step back and just not be welcoming whatsoever. Maybe. It's extremely plausible. Or she could be staying loyal to the operation that she knows was running from the B&B for the sake of her business. The Airbnb was not a B&B bookable prior to Jay Slater being there. It wasn't ever bookable, had no reviews. Ayub Qasim's review was the first ever review that it had. In fact, there might have been one review before that, and it wasn't even a review. It was just someone saying excellent. And then that same person said excellent again later on that month after Jay had been there. The same person. Make that make sense? Which comes after Ayub left his review. And then you got to think, why would Ayub actually leave a review on a B&B where a guy's just mysteriously gone missing from? And you're thanking the cleaner and the agent of the B&B. You're not thanking Affiliate. You're not thanking Affiliate's brother or husband or the guy that was with the wheelbarrow. No, you're thanking the agent of the Airbnb and the cleaner, Alva. Why? Make it make sense. Oh yeah, I forgot. Nobody has investigated this. All we knew was Affiliate being the only witness at the Airbnb. Then Ayub tells us months later that there was this guy with a wheelbarrow and another guy. He had a big belly and they reminded him of the people from the hills have eyes. That is what he said. And he's saying this at least 2-3 months later. Why all of a sudden do we get to the first inquest, which is almost a year later, and we've got these two new statements? These two new statements. Wow. One of them is a statement from a dead man. The guy's dead. So we can't even verify if that statement is genuine. And if you listen to that statement, if you actually run through that statement, oh my God. Even the other statements, they're contradictions, they're lies, they're things that don't describe Jay. It makes you think that they never saw Jay, they saw someone else if those statements are genuine. But the whole situation at the Airbnb is extremely sketchy. And on the basis of it being so sketchy, ladies and gentlemen, it tells me that it never happened. Jay never went to that Airbnb alive. There is no proof of Jay's existence, his physical existence at that B&B, other than a photo of Jay in the back of the car smiling, which Ayub should have shown Debbie, Warren, everyone from day one. You didn't need to go on a podcast and reveal you zooming in and out of Rocky sleeping if you had that picture. If Ayub really had that picture as evidence, we would have seen it ages ago, because the authorities would have had it and the authorities would have shown it to Debbie. The authorities would have got it to the media and the media would have got it out there to the public. We would have seen that photo ages ago. You can't just turn up on one day and say, oh, here's just a picture of Jay smiling in the back of the car. And everyone's like, oh, well, oh yeah, that's it then. You good? You good with that? Cool. Case closed. Case closed. We're done here then. Accidental fall. Misadventure in the mountains. Yeah, it was drugs.
When you look at that CT scan of his skull, irregardless of blood spattering or phone damage, Jay was significantly hurt by that fall.
A lot of people are saying that the documentary didn't, in their opinion, prove that it was necessarily a rock or something that broke Jay's fall, and that was how he passed away. And it didn't rule out that he could have been hit with a blunt object to the back of the head or something like that, left-hand side of the head prior, and then pushed off. And the documentary, to be fair, did pour a little bit of fuel on that by including the clip of the guy saying, like, I can't rule out that he was pushed. If you can't rule out that he was pushed, you maybe can't rule out that he hadn't been struck with a blunt object or something like that to the back of the head either. Exactly. And the reason I say this is he did mention about the fact that that would have not only broke his fall, but, you know, instantly killed him. You would think that if it did, then the body would stay in that position where it was, and then you would think that unless it was a rock that you potentially hit on the way down, that you'd be able to say, well, actually, and this is probably stupid man's logic, right?
It's not though.
But
I know what he's about to
like
say.
a jigsaw piece, you can fit that in there and
exactly.
say,
You should be able to. I hear what he's saying, and it's if they go into the location, they should be able to pinpoint exactly at what rock, at what destination he hit his head, and that is what killed him. They should be able to do that, but they haven't done that. The forensic teams haven't done that. They've just found the body, taken it away from there, and that's more or less it. They've probably done something to the grounds that the body was laying on, something along those lines. But other than that, ladies and gentlemen, I don't think they've done any real forensic examination around the area or to determine at what point he would have hit his head and would have been killed. They haven't been able to do that. They haven't done that. The only reason they're coming to the conclusions that they've come to is because the body was found in the location that it was found in. So it was 20 meters, 20 to 25 meters is what they predict the distance was from where he fell to the ground. What I want to ask, and what I've got question marks over, is what about other broken bones? See, if someone fell, consciously fell, then why wouldn't they try and break their fall? How would they fracture their pelvis and land straight on their head? How does that make any sense? Did they try and dive off? Like, just think of it. If someone's trying to even climb down, or someone is just walking and they're not seeing that there's a gap that you can just fall straight through or just fall off, how does one not try and use their arms or their legs to break their fall? How does one just land straight on their head without, you don't fall, and especially from a great height, 20 meters, 25 meters, it gives you enough time to actually put your hands up to protect your head. Even though you know you're landing on your head or you're landing like a fucking skydiving, you still gives you enough time to just put your arms in the air so you protect your head. And then you just shatter and break your arms. But he didn't shatter or break his arms, did he? He didn't shatter or break his legs. Just a fractured pelvis and a head injury. Make it make sense.
Yes, that is where he hit his head.
By the end of the documentary, the family had seen enough evidence based on the inquiry that they attended to say that they'd found the answers that they needed to find, and they had a solution to what happened.
I don't want to fuel conspiracy theories and whatever, but I did find it a little bit weird that obviously when Warren shows the clothes that Jay was wearing, that his body was found in, they were vacuum packed, basically. They were sealed up. Going on the state of the clothing, there was no blood on the t-shirt, there was no blood on the trainers. Where was the blood?
This is the thing, I don't know the answer to that.
Because there was dirt.
There was dirt.
There was a lot of dirt on it.
And this is the thing, like I was about to say that dirt could have been a blood stain, but I don't know the answer to that.
It didn't look
like a blood
stain.
No, it didn't. It didn't look like blood.
Now, to give it a bit of context, I've been in and around boxing gyms and whatever for the past decade.
Yeah.
I've also, unfortunately, seen people hit their head on the ground after getting knocked out in pubs and stuff like that.
There's a lot of blood.
Blood gets everywhere.
There's a lot of blood.
Yeah.
There's a lot of blood.
There was scratches on the body and marks in which he was falling.
Which you'd think when they said like significant damage to the left side of the body, you'd think maybe the t-shirt would be all ripped up, stuff like that. Yeah. But obviously it wasn't.
Let's just stop right there. And this is a very, very good clip. Big up Joey and Josh. Make sure you guys go and subscribe to their channel. Why is this so important, ladies and gentlemen? Why is this part so important? Let's look at the t-shirt. So we've got a t-shirt and we've got the trainers. Now, I've already kind of given a slight opinion on this. I've already told you guys that the trainers look in pristine condition And they're definitely not the same trainers that were worn in the video at the B&B with the blanket wrapped around the person. Different trainers. The detail on these trainers will not fade from close up. Maybe if you're looking at a CCTV image, a grainy image like the one in Tramps, from a distance, the trainers may look entirely black, especially in the dark. But when you're on the doorstep of a B&B and you're just looking down, taking a picture of the blanket and your trainer and the cigarette and the lighter, you're going to see the design of these trainers. You're going to see the exact design that we see right now when we look at that trainer. Bearing in mind, there will be whites that we should have been seeing in that video, but there is no white. Unless you're telling me that these ain't the trainers that Jay wore. But I know these are the trainers that Jay wore that night. You know why I know? Because that logo on the top of the tongue, that TN logo, I remember seeing it reflecting off Jay's trainers when he was waved out of his face and he had no t-shirt on. Again, we're back to Jay not having no t-shirt on. Why is this t-shirt, like Joey said, why is this t-shirt got no rips? Doesn't even look like the t-shirt was cut open or ripped, like cut by the forensics to take off of Jay. This t-shirt looks like it's fully intact. Like Jay wasn't wearing it when his body was found. Now, if Jay wasn't wearing it when his body was found, what do we have on CCTV? Jay leaving the NRG festival with no t-shirt on. So it means Jay never wore his t-shirt all night. You're telling me Jay went to Tramps, Sugar Reefs, sucked balloons, Magic Mike's, had foods, got into the car with Ayub, went all the way to the Airbnb, wrapped himself up in a blanket, but the whole entire time he was never wearing his t-shirt. Because if he was wearing his t-shirt, ladies and gentlemen, based on the injuries to the left side of Jay's body, there would 100% be rips in this t-shirt if he was wearing it. Now, unfortunately, we can't see the front of this t-shirt. But what this t-shirt is now telling me is that he wasn't wearing it because it's in a condition where it hasn't been cut to be taken off a dead person. At the autopsy, they wouldn't have been taking the t-shirt off as if they're pulling it over his head, over his arms. If he was wearing his clothes, that t-shirt would have been cut. It would have been taken off. And they wouldn't have stapled it back together either. So tell me how the t-shirt doesn't look like it's got any rips, but it does have dirt. So you can clearly see that the t-shirt has been lying in dirt. Was Jay wearing his t-shirt lying in the mountains? Or was Jay found without his t-shirt and the t-shirt was just dumped alongside him? Again, we don't have the details of that, do we? We actually try to find those details. Months and months ago, we were really trying to find out if Jay was found with his clothes on or with his clothes off. The media told us he was found beside his clothes. The media told us he was found beside his clothes. So he wasn't found with his clothes on, which means Jay never put his t-shirt back on, which means Jay never went to Tramps. Jay was never in Sugar Reefs or outside Sugar Reefs sucking balloons. Jay was never at Magic Mike's with the group, with the gang, and Ayub bought them all foods before jumping into the car with Rocky and Ayub going to the Airbnb. Because why would he go into the mountains without his t-shirt on? Why would he go into the mountains and say, oh, I'm going to take this t-shirt off and I'm going to just plant the t-shirt next to me before I fall and bust my head open? What are we talking about? Come on, man. Come on, man. It really infuriates me the more I go into this, the more I break this down for you. It really infuriates me that Debbie, Warren, the friends, like none of them have pursued this to try and get down to the bottom of it. They have got closure of a picture that Ayub magically revealed at the inquest. If I was Debbie and Warren, I would have said, why have you not shown us that time ago? Or did he show it time ago and they were just all playing us? Because they had this agenda, the Jay's Law agenda. I don't know. But it's not making sense to me. Part of me feels like someone was trying to pull the wool over Warren's eyes. Kind of indicates that someone knew the truth from day one. What we're seeing here, ladies and gentlemen, is more proof that Jay wasn't wearing his clothes. He wasn't wearing that t-shirt. A lot of us had that feeling from the beginning, but just look at that t-shirt. It hasn't been cut. You can see the logo. That t-shirt was just dumped. Look at it, man. Look, there's no rips, no cuts. Like the t-shirt wasn't cut off of Jay. They wouldn't have pulled that t-shirt off of Jay via his arms and over his head. They wouldn't have done that. They would have cut the t-shirt off off the body. But no, this t-shirt was clearly found next to the body. And it tells us all we need to know, ladies and gentlemen. It tells us that this poor guy, Jay, man, they done him within that missing time that I've told you about. Within that 1.5 hours of him leaving and sending that message to Lucy at 2:40 saying, oh, they've kicked me out. They've kicked me out. Like she wouldn't have known an hour and a half ago because you were all together. Yeah. Oh, they've kicked me out. And then what's so weird in the documentary, ladies and gentlemen, don't we hear like a voice note from Lucy saying to Jay, oh, if you're there, I'll come down now or something. Don't let me down kind of thing. Don't let me down. You know, I'll come down now and get you or whatever it was. But it was like a voice note. It was kind of like she was saying it. It wasn't a text message. And I'm thinking, hold on, was that a voice note? I know it was an actress doing a voiceover, but was it a voice note? Or were they just reading a message and just reading it out loud? That was a voice note that they extracted from Jay's phone. Then was they able to extract any voice notes that Jay would have been sending to his friends? Bearing in mind, he was making over 70 calls. He made over 70 calls, took no videos, took no photos, and clearly sent no voice notes. No voice notes. Lost in the mountains. Didn't send any voice notes. Come on, man. Jay didn't make it to the Airbnb alive. Jay died shortly after 1:10 in the morning. And they started to fabricate it the moment they made it look like Jay sent that message to Lucy saying he's just been kicked out. You know, you got to also think at that point, ladies and gentlemen, there's no explanation from Brad. What's Brad's explanation? We said this a few videos ago. What's Brad's explanation? In between the hours of 1:10 up until he claims Jay phoned him via video call at 5:30 in the morning, which is like, we're talking nearly 5 hours later. Where were you, Brad? Like, you know what I'm saying? Makes no sense. There's no explanation for where Brad was at that point. And when he gave us his original interview, when Jay called him, he said, I've just come out of a festival. There was no explanation. You just come out of a festival when Jay called you, but then at the inquest, you said your last conversation with Jay asked you, have you got any drink back at the apartment? And that was the last thing or the last time you spoke to him. Wow. So you're saying that your last words with Jay was, have I got any drink back at the apartment? Or have you got any drink back at the apartment? What happened to going down this little bit? Not a big drop, this little drop. If he was anything like me, he wouldn't have went all the way down there. What? How did we get from that to the inquest saying, oh, the last time I spoke to Jay, he asked me if I had any drink back at the apartment. And that was the last time I spoke to him. Did he seem like he feared for his life? No. No, just straight no. Because that's who he was there for, Brad, isn't it? Brad only went to that inquest to ensure that his side of the story was Jay left the Airbnb and he was calm. He didn't fear for his life. Ultimately, Brad has said something that he never told us before, but he's saying what he said in protection of Brandon. Brandon is the guy that's being protected here. And this evidence of Jay's t-shirt and trainers is just more proof that he never went to Masca alive. All right, let's leave it there, ladies and gentlemen. Don't want this one to drag on like the last one. Plus, I've got my washing going on in the background and it's making a lot of noise. So I don't want there to be any technical interferences. But I want you guys to go and watch part 1 and then get back here and watch part 2. This one was insightful. This one opens your eyes. It clearly gives you a clearer understanding of what has truly happened to Jay. And it wasn't just an accident. And then we had people like Chris Tenerife, Sluggy the side chick from Wales, and they came in because they were protecting the same person, Brandon. Anyway, leave all your comments down below, ladies and gentlemen. We've still got more Jay Slater reactions to come, so don't go anywhere. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if we're newly watching, turn your notification bells on. Be sure to subscribe to Joey and Josh as well. Great content over there. So go and subscribe to their channel. But most importantly, leave all of your comments down below. I need to know exactly what you guys are thinking after watching this one. So leave those thoughts, leave those comments, leave those opinions down below. I look forward to seeing you guys on the next one.